Excelente, joven, etcétera.
Thrill me.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Horror Flicks and Guitar Picks podcast. I'm your host, Tim, and today I'm joined by my weekly co-host, Steven, as we dive into our Meet the Host episode, Music Edition. How's it going, man? Thank you for joining me again.
Yeah, that's my Creed Scott Stapp impression. Since we're talking about music, hell yeah! What's up, buddy?
The best of the best. We might as well start with the Kings of Hard Rock.
Hell yeah!
But no, what's funny is before we were recording, I was watching Jeepers Creepers this morning, and of course, before anybody dives in the comments, we know the director sucks, but I got given the movie in a collection of DVDs a while ago, so I still watch it from time to time. But and there's a part where early on in the movie, Justin Long, sorry, cat cameo, guys. Ugh.
Hell yeah!
There's a part early on in the movie where I'd leave them up here, but my keyboard's up here, and I don't want it all of a sudden the call end. But when Derry goes into like the creeper's like lair, and he's looking around at the bodies, and the sister's yelling down to him, and she goes, "Derry, say something!" And the way she screams, I wasn't looking at the TV. I swore it sounded like Brian Garris from Knocked Loose. I was like, "Holy shit!"
Derry, say something!
Woof woof woof.
It was like the high pitch, because he does the like the high pitched kind of screams.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I was like, God
That's
damn,
awesome.
I was like, she's pretty and can do vocals. She needs to jump in one of these bands, like. But I do like that movie. But that's one if we ever cover it, we'll definitely like. I'm not gonna shy away from covering it in the future, but we'll definitely have to talk. Like some people kind of just gloss over this negative stuff behind the scenes, but we would definitely
Yeah.
dive into it and let people know what really happened and what, well, not really happened, like it's a lie out there, but let people know at least a few details and stuff. But
Oh,
um,
totally.
speaking of horror movies, though, before we dive into the music stuff, did you watch any new horror movies since the last time we recorded? Or, our last episode was a Meet the Host horror edition, so we were talking
Sure.
about our favorites and stuff. Was there anything that you forgot to mention that, like, after you hopped off, you're like, damn it, I wish I would have shouted this out? Or,
It's been a little light for watching horror. I did I did go see some stuff. Like I went and saw Mickey 17, which isn't really horror, but cool sci-fi action flick.
yeah,
And uh Robert Pattinson, he crushed it. Like he was so good playing multiple different types of himself, which was cool to see.
yeah.
So that was cool. I recently watched Deadly Spawn on Shudder, which it has been on my list for like a very long time. Like, I don't know, I'm a sucker for any rubber 80s, monster horror flicks, B movies. So that was fun. I mean, just classic 80s creature feature. And I don't know, you just kind of know what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything that blew my mind, but it's just late night fun, drink a beer and watch blood and monsters. So that was fun. Lots of teeth, which was, cool to see.
Oh, yeah.
Um and then probably like the coolest film I saw recently, I was like going down a rabbit hole of I don't know what it is about like this time of year. I get like really into wanting to like watch like either like crime noir type films and so yeah, so I'm always like looking for something that I haven't seen. And I saw a suggestion for this movie called Fallen Angels, which is a Chinese Asian neo-noir film that takes place in Hong Kong, and it's about like this hitman, and he has this business partner who she sets up like all of his jobs for him and all the targets, and they're kind of like falling in love with each other. So it has this like they know seeing each other would compromise everything, but like there's this like romance tension or whatever. I don't know. It's just a cool ass flick. It's like 95, I think, is when it was filmed, and it's just like hyper stylized, like cool fish eyes and stuff like that. I don't know. It's like classic. Like the hitman is always smoking a cigarette, so it's like he looks cool smoking cigarettes, even though I hate smoking.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. It's just a super styly film, and yeah, definitely worth checking out. It's on HBO Max, so if you haven't seen it and you like neo noir crime type films, then it's worth scoping. So, but yeah, kind of light on the horror stuff, but still violent. There's definitely a good bit of violence at this film, so
Yeah.
it's worth checking out. So,
No, hell yeah. No, and I know exactly what you mean. It's one of those things where it's like I don't smoke, but if he offered me a cigarette, I might take it just because it's like
he
that
looks
impressed
so
him.
cool.
Yeah.
He's like just all in the movie. He's just always like on the corner and like there's the glow, and I don't know. It's like how could you look cooler? I
Right.
don't know. It's stupid, but it's funny.
Well, fuck yeah. It's
Yeah.
like when Snoopy puts on the jacket and sunglasses, man, the shit changes.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. And the funny thing is like this dude, he doesn't even like I don't know. It's like he doesn't look like the toughest dude in the world, so it's like the last person I guess you would assume to be a hitman. Like he kind of looks like anything more like a preppy boy 90s guy, you
Yeah.
know? But yeah, he's got that cigarette and he's badass.
That's like have you seen the trailer? There's a new movie coming out called Fight or Flight. It's Josh Hartnett and he's got like bleach blonde hair and
Oh,
he's pretty much got to fight his way off a plane.
I saw that. It's done by, is it John Wick people?
I
Is
think
it?
so. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that, and it's funny, which is fitting for this episode. I was like, oh man, freaking Josh Hartnett looking like classic tough guy 90s hardcore dude. Like that dude looks like he would fight you in a pit. So,
Right. No, he looks like
but
the vocalist of Haywire. Fucking just
yeah, dude.
yeah, hell
For
yeah.
sure.
No, I didn't really watch anything new myself. I checked out Pink Flamingos for the Patreon episode this month. That is already out by the time this drops. So if anybody's interested, there is a Patreon. It's only $2 a month. You get bonus episodes a month and some stickers and stuff. So check that out if you're interested. It's in the links for all the episodes. And then also, I did want to shout out though Green, which of course Pink Flamingos was fucking awesome. I loved it. It was the first time I've ever seen it. I even bought the Criterion just because it's so hard to find. Um, and I do not regret it. I'll probably watch it again when I can, because of course, being a family man, that's not a family movie, so I have
Not
to
so
sneak it
much.
in. But no. And then I did want to mention Green Room because I didn't shout that out last time we did, when we did the episode. But that's definitely one of my favorites of like the past decade of just movies in general, and it fits for the episode as well. So I figured it would be perfect to shout out. But
Yeah, has that guy done anything new recently? It's been a while. Is that his last most recent film?
no, he did that action movie that came out on Netflix last year called Rebel Ridge, where the guy that played Mufasa was in it, and he's
Oh,
like
really?
he like comes back to town. I think Don Knotts is in it, or Don
Damn.
Johnson, not Don Knotts. Don Johnson is in it as like the head of the police station. He like comes back to like get his brother out, and he's like deadly pretty much and fucks them all up.
Uh-huh.
So I
Oh, dang,
haven't.
I haven't checked that one out. I'll have to that one slipped through the cracks for me.
Yeah, it was one I knew about and I was excited for, but because it was action, I just didn't fit it in when I had time because it came out towards the end of the year, and that's when like the big horror, like every time I have time to
Mhm.
like my wife ain't really interested in action films, so she ain't watching it with me. So when I'm trying to like when I find time to watch a movie, I'm trying to like fit in those horror movies at the end of the year for like the top 10 lists and stuff like that. So
Sure, sure.
all that time goes to the horror, which definitely I'm not complaining about, but just means that those other movies, go to the wayside sometimes. So
Hmm.
uh
Sure.
like there's even some movies that are by directors I love. I was just thinking earlier today, I still really need to see Kinds of Kindness because I love Yorgos Lanthimos, but I haven't seen that yet just because it's not
Same.
like truly horror, but
Yeah, that's another one too that like I mean I love his movies too, but also most of his movies are not the most family friendly,
yeah.
So that's not one that I'm just gonna casually put on the background, you know. So
Yeah. And they're long, so it's not like you have
mm.
like you can't just fit it in like a fucking cool hour and 20-minute movie or something, but
Oh, I'm dying to see The Brutalist. And I'm like, yeah, this is the night. And then it's like 10 o'clock, and I'm like, oh shit, this movie's 3.5 hours long. And I was like, okay, maybe tomorrow night. And so I
yeah.
keep just not. I could always break it up, but if I don't have to break up a movie, like I'd rather like watch the whole thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, but
I know that in theaters they had an intermission, but I don't know if that's
oh, interesting.
like I don't know if the intermission plays when you watch it like, on streaming
Mm,
or something. However, you could probably look up at like what point they had the intermission so that way you could at
that's a
least
good idea.
separate it where where they felt it wouldn't fuck up the flow. So
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to keep that in mind. Check it out. So,
yeah, a lot of people I didn't think it would have because I was tempted to go see it in theaters and same thing. It was like once I saw that runtime, I was like, I'm not sitting in theaters that long. But then I saw it had an intermission, so I was a little bit more like thinking about it, but then by that time it was like one showing a day or and it was like 3:45 in the afternoon is the only time you could see it. So I was like,
sure.
I'm not gonna worry about it. But Oh yeah, we can dive into the music side of things, and I figured instead of going straight back immediately, we can kind of
Okay.
talk about like what kind of stuff we're listening to today. Has there been any new records lately that you really enjoyed, or what's some of the go-to bands that you listen to when you jump in to the car? Which also, for those listening, we also the one thing is we're only really going to talk about like heavier bands or like alternative music or maybe even like pop punk and stuff, but we do listen to all kinds of genres and all types of music. Just for the sake of the podcast and the stuff that is relevant, we're just going to kind of stick with that stuff and how we got into that type of music, and not necessarily just cover all the genres because then we'd be here for 17 hours. So,
Heck yeah. As far as new stuff goes, I mean it's not that new, but it came out pretty recently. Is I've been majorly crushing on the band Drug Church.
oh yeah,
Um, and so they have this album that came out called Prude recently, and it's so good. If you like, kind of that I don't even know what to categorize. It's like hardcore, like, but more that crossover like hardcore pop punk, like Title Fight kind of stuff. And it's good though. I dig it. It's like perfect for like springtime weather, I feel like. So it's like anytime it's spring, I just want to listen to like pop punk and stuff like that.
oh
Um,
yeah,
it feels sunny. It's happier, I guess. I don't
right.
I don't know.
That's like I saw
But
Set Your Goals is doing an East Coast show, and I was like, oh my
oh hell
God,
yeah.
why does it have to be all the way up in fucking Pennsylvania?
But
Because
yeah, but yeah, Drug Church is sick. I mean, it's I don't know, it's fun. All of their guitar riffs are like super hooky, so I like that. It's just like catchy as possible, but it's like super freaking heavy. And yeah, so Drug Church, which made me discover a band recently called Squint, so I've been checking them out a little bit. Similar kind of vibe.
oh yeah,
Um, Trying to think what else. This winter, I was super heavy into Castle Rat. Have you listened to them?
no, I've never even heard of them, but I'll definitely check them out.
Castle Rat's sick.
I
It's
was gonna say the
like,
name alone sells.
yeah. It's like, me and my one of my best friend Philip, were super into Castle Rat, and I keep missing them playing shows. Like I just happen to like either be further away out of town somewhere else, like when they're close by, or but they're like fully like fantasy metal thematic. Like the lead vocalist, she dresses up as the Rat Queen, and she's like just wears like chainmail and has like super badass like fantasy babe like metal hair, you know.
Oh yeah.
She's the vocalist and plays guitar, and then like the bass player is like a plague doctor, and like the guitar player is like a demon vampire. I don't know, they all have like characters, and like their whole set is, kind of, it sounds corny, but it's super badass. It's like doomy stoner, like early Sabbath kind of stuff. Definitely worth checking out. And then their show just seems fun. Like she drinks like a chalice of blood and like has to battle like a rat demon on stage and stuff. It's cool. It's not like full on like Guar crazy, like hijinks and stuff like that, but it's got a little bit of that. So
Oh yeah.
yeah. So there's that, and then I'm trying to think what else. As far as like heavy stuff goes, I see you wearing Enforced shirt. They
Yep.
have a newer LP out that came out. I think it was this fall, winter kind of time.
Yeah.
Uh, that ripped super hard. And then recently started listening. Do you listen to Speed?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
fuck with
started listening
speed.
to Speed, and they're pretty sick. I'm kind of like getting back into like heavy music, kind of
Oh yeah.
sort of like over the past like 2 years. I've been sort of getting back into it. I don't know why I stepped away, but like I think I just got really into like indie rock and kind of more of that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of like my current stuff. And then I don't know if it's just because of trends. Spotify just, my daily like mix is like you need to listen to like all 90s music. So it's like Pixies and Smashing Pumpkins and stuff like that, which is I ain't upset about that. So
Right. No, hell yeah. I know half the shows I want to go to this year are like brand new bands or that are, have only been out for maybe 2 to 3 years. And then the rest of them are bands that have been out since like the 90s, like the Offspring's coming. I want to go see that shit.
oh
Uh,
yeah.
Everclear is fucking coming. I'll go see Everclear in a heartbeat, dude. I fucking love
Oh
Everclear.
yeah, isn't Offspring coming to Virginia Beach this summer
Yeah,
or something like that? It's like Offspring. Who else is playing that show? It's
it's
kind
a
of a
good.
sick.
Yeah, as I say, the whole lineup's pretty good. I can't remember exactly who. A Newfound Glory's on it, which is like my
Yes.
favorite pop punk band of
Oh,
all
and
time.
Jimmy Eat World, right? Isn't it
Yes.
Jimmy Eat
Yep.
World, Newfound Glory? Yeah, that show's
Yeah, that
gonna
shit's
be
stacked,
sick.
dude.
So yeah, that sounds. I'm gonna go get my skateboard and do some kick flips on the boardwalk. I don't. Is it at the beach? I don't know where it is. It's probably at the amphitheater.
Yeah, as I say, it's at Virginia Beach, but yeah, in the amphitheater, so we can skate down the mountain, just fucking get some dirt.
But that's like that is like my middle school like eat some freaking hot pockets and grab my skateboard, go listen to some Offspring, play some Tony Hawk Pro Skater. That was like my jam for sure.
Dude,
That's
same
what
and
that tour is.
right. And the Offspring I've only got to see one time, and it was at Warped Tour, so I would love to see them like actually get to headline and play more than 30 minutes. You know what I mean? So,
Sure. Yeah, that'd be sick. Nice. Cool. What about you? What have you been jamming to?
my favorite like recent record is like coming out like I think last month.
Mhm.
Yeah, because by the time this comes, it'll be April. So it came out in March, which I guess is already April now. But uh, it's Gates to Hell, Death Comes for Us All.
Mhm.
Which I don't know if they're named after Gates, Gates to Hell, the trilogy, or just named after, Gates to Hell because it's a cool name. But
Sure.
I really enjoy them, and it's probably like up there for album of the year so far for me, which I haven't listened to a super
Okay.
ton this year, but I enjoyed that. The new Whitechapel was solid. The new Spirit World is pretty cool. But as far as like bands that are go-to for me when I jump in the car and stuff like that, I mean, my favorite in recent years has become that band Slope from the UK. I don't know if you checked them
Mhm.
out yet, but I really dig them. They're super funky, but still have like a lot of hardcore and like punk influence and stuff, and
Mhm.
super bouncy as well. I really like Kubicon, of course, is one of my favorites. Their album last year was awesome.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Division of something, but Earth Theory, I can't remember, but that album was cool. Exhibition of Prowess was the name of their album. That's right. And then Peeling Flesh is one of my go-tos as well. I'm stoked to see them at LDB. They put out an album last year that was awesome, the G Code. If you haven't listened to Peeling Flesh, it's like slam mixed with like hip hop. It's fucking awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Heck yeah.
now of
Check it
course
out.
and then I listen to like Turnstile. I'm stoked. I don't know if you saw Turnstile just put a billboard up saying that June 6th we're gonna get
I
some new
can't
music, and
wait.
then
I was
uh
literally just thinking the other day, I'm like, all right, it's been too long. I'm ready. I need more of it.
yeah, hell yeah. Now and then of course just to represent some more Richmond, since we talked about Enforced, Naysayer put up a new song. That shit was excellent. Big
Yeah, it's
fan
good.
of that stuff. I'm a big fan of End It from Baltimore as well. And it's another one of my favorite bands. So and then
Nice.
also another, I don't know. I think they're from Maryland. I always gonna mix. I can never remember if they're from Richmond or Maryland, but I'm a big fan of Brace War as well. I think they're from Baltimore, but
Oh, they're Richmond. They're Richmond
oh,
for
they are Richmond.
sure.
Okay,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
hell yeah, another one of my favorites. But they're one of those that because they just put out a bunch of EPs, they have it like put
Mhm.
together on a discography. So I just listen to the discography, like just from that fucking sick ass intro to Friends Like Us and stuff like, or Friends Like You and stuff like that. So
Mhm. Yeah, I was talking to my buddy Cody that does studio house designs.
yeah,
We got
hell yeah.
talking. He did a t-shirt for like Vision Video this past, I think it was summer or this fall.
Yeah, coming
We
up
just got
guest on the
yeah,
show,
yeah.
Vision Video.
Heck yeah. And we just got talking, shirts because, I do Toxic Coffin. We both do horror t-shirts, and he was talking about like, oh man, I miss like making merch t-shirt and stuff. So I was like, oh, who have you done? And he mentioned he did Brace War. And kind of jokingly, I was like, oh man, I remember like being in college and seeing Brace War play in Richmond and stuff like that. And they always had this one shirt that I was just like, this is the craziest shirt ever. And it just said Brace War fucks on the first date.
Yeah,
And and he was like, oh yeah, I did that. And I was like,
hell
oh,
yeah.
sick. I was like, yeah, I'll never not forget that shirt. And he's like, yeah, he's like, that was a good one. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah. No, that's
But
one thing I love about like hardcore is the way that they'll do a bootleg mock-up of something
oh yeah.
or like a joke or something, you know what I mean? Stuff like there's like End It has a shirt where it's like the what's it Bugle Boy or whatever where he's like pissing on the fucking signs or whatever. You got like him like pissing on the End It name and stuff. But then as far as where this all started, you kind of mentioned Tony Hawk Pro Skater. That was a big one for me starting out. What was some of the things, when you were younger and growing up that got you into this type of music? And I'm sure at different, if you're like me, it's probably a bunch of different things at different levels that kind of introduce you to little things, and then stuff sprouted from there. But
Gosh, yeah, I'm trying to think. Like as far as like more aggressive music goes, I definitely went like punk rock first. Like that was, but I had like my so we kind of talked about it on the last episode. My brothers are older than me, so when you have older brothers, they typically like have a more cool music influence. But my oldest brother, Chris, he was like super into like industrial music and stuff like that. So when I was a little kid, he was like blasting like, Ministry and like Skinny Puppy and like all that kind of stuff, which scared the shit out of me. Like, I was like, I don't know what this is. This is not like
like, what is he doing
um
in there?
yeah, but he took me to my first show ever, which was it was Slipknot, Linkin Park, Mudvayne, and Papa Roach at Virginia Beach Amphitheater.
Oh yeah.
Um, and because he was like trying to encourage me to get into like music and stuff like that. And he was like, oh, like at that time he was like, you should really like Linkin Park because I think he really liked that they had more like DJ and stuff like that. It kind of fit more of like his like darker electronic industrial stuff that he was into. So he was like, oh yeah, let's go to that. Um, so he took me to that, which that was cool. I guess I had like a pretty short-lived. I wasn't your, I was born in 87, grew up in the 90s, so like you would expect like I was like super into like new metal and stuff like that. And I did listen to that a bit if it was on the radio, but my parents, I grew up like hardcore Catholic and my parents were really strict about like getting CDs or anything. So like before I could get anything, like my mom would have to read the entire lyrics and approve of it,
Yeah.
And so, which is fine, I guess, but so a lot of that stuff I never got to like just have myself.
Yeah.
And then that was also like when it was, like the music stores like all had the parental advisory stickers on it and you couldn't buy, shit, without, a parent, there. And um, so yeah, I guess I listened to like I had a phase like probably like 1 year of kind of getting into like I never really got that into Slipknot. Um, I liked aggressive music and I liked heavy stuff. I just learned pretty quickly like oh yeah, if it's loud and there's something about it. But then I think it was like the following year I got hardcore into skateboarding. Tony Hawk Pro Skater like had just come out. And then I was just like, oh, what is this? Like pop
Yeah.
punk, like anything from that to ska music. Like I was just like, this is more like my style. Like I loved Green Day and Blink 182. Actually, the first CD I ever bought was a Suicide Machine CD, and
Oh
that
yeah.
was because of Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Um, and but yeah, I mean, I got it's kind of a fun claim, but like I also had a CD way later than like any of my friends ever did, just because my parents were so strict. So it was like, yeah, I got that, and then got really into AFI. I think AFI was like one of my second CDs I ever got. And then yeah, I mean that just kind of like punk music kind of evolved from being into that from skateboarding and being into surfing and stuff like that. And then by the time I got into high school, you know, um, it was like the big like screamo emo phase, so like everybody was like listening to My Chemical Romance and stuff like that. Definitely went through a phase of kind of getting into that. And then I had some like older friends that I ran cross country with, and they were like really into like hardcore music.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh yeah, like have you ever heard of My Chemical Romance?" And they're like, it's okay, but like you should check out Hatebreed." And I was just like, "What? I don't know." And they're like, "Come on over," and they like invited me over, which was pretty sick,
Yeah.
And they're like, "We're gonna show you some music," and like that was like my first like true introduction into like really really heavy stuff. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so shout out to my old high school buddy Mark Anderson for getting me into hardcore music.
Hell yeah.
So
No, my intro was kind of similar as far as like, family member doing it and stuff, but very different like in music because most of my uncles and stuff growing up played guitar, but a lot of them were into like Bon Jovi and
Mhm.
stuff like that. But my one uncle that like because all of them played guitar, but most of them played to sing along. They didn't like play guitar.
Mhm.
But my one
Sure.
uncle, my uncle Nick, he has always played guitar like to play be a guitarist. He doesn't care about like the singing. Like he loves like he got me into Metallica. It was like the first
Oh
band
yeah.
he showed me and stuff. And he was showing me bands like Metallica. He showed me The Offspring. He loved the album Smash they put out was like one of his or Ixnay on the well, no, he loved both of those. Smash and
Mhm.
Ixnay on the Hombre were like two he played the fuck out of. And in I think like the closest thing to hardcore though that he like really listened to was Hatebreed, but after that it was pretty much just stuff like Metallica, Megadeth,
Mhm.
Anthrax. Of course, like it grew into like him listening to Korn and Rage Against the Machine and showing me that stuff. And
Sure.
I was really into that. So I'd say that was probably like my intro into heavy stuff. But really, as I got a little older, my dad would like get free tickets to stuff. And the first concert he ever
Mhm.
took me to was Blink-182 and Green Day, which was super cool, because my first concert ever was Kansas and Yes. And that was like a
Yeah.
family thing with because it's my stepdad's favorite band. But the second concert I ever went to was with my dad, and the first one that was like a choice for me was Green Day and Blink-182. And it was back when like Enema of the State came out. So that was kind of where like I'd really started getting into Blink-182
Mhm.
because they played on the radio and stuff like that. And so that's
Mhm.
kind of where my love for pop punk came from. And then they both kind of came together because my dad would get free tickets to shows because he was a manager of a grocery store where they'd sell to like, give a display to Coke, and Coke was a sponsor, so they give out
Mhm.
free tickets and stuff. And so one time randomly my dad was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of Warped Tour?" And I
Mhm.
was like, no, but I'll check it out." He's like, "It's supposed to have like 50 bands." He's like, "Go look online." He's like, "We got tickets." So this was like 2002, and
Sure.
I think I was only like 11 years old, or no, it was 2003 because I was 11 years old, and
Mhm.
that was the first time I went to Warped Tour, and I remember only knowing like three or four bands, but by the time you leave with so many free CDs, and you know this band, but you have 2 hours before the next band, so you sit in the amphitheater and like that was the first time I heard Coheed and Cambria. It was the first time
Yeah.
I got a sampler CD that had "Where's Your Boy" by Fall Out Boy, yeah, "Where's Your Boy Tonight" by Fall Out Boy on it. And that was like the first time I heard Fall Out Boy and shit. That was the first time I heard of the Killers because they had somebody told me on one of those fucking samples and stuff. But
Mhm.
so now I used to listen to all that stuff, and then hardcore really came later, like for me in like high
Sure.
school and stuff. Like it grew into that because that kind of scene of music and like Warped Tour and stuff, that grew into like metalcore and this and that. And then as I learned about metalcore, that started to slide into hardcore. And because living in bumfuck Elizabeth City, I didn't really know many people that were super into hardcore, like know about it like
Sure.
that. So, but
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, it's interesting. I feel like Warped Tour was such a like influential music, point for a lot of people like our age,
yeah,
because that was also like one of the first times I remember going like my parents like going and like we got dropped off and it's like all right we just got to make sure like my buddy had an older sister so she was like our chaperone but like I mean she was in high school so it wasn't like
yeah,
like parents following you around and that was like our first like taste of freedom and just like experiencing like counterculture and music like that and I don't know I mean I'm sure it struck you the same way where you're just like oh like there is there's something to a lot of this chaos that's just like amazing so
but yeah,
um
it became pretty much more important than my birthday after a while because, like I said, I started going when in like 2003, and I didn't stop going until I had me and Lauren went to a Warped Tour together, and we've been together uh 10 years now, so
mm,
or 11 years now, so it was like 2000, like it was the second to last one was the one we went to together. So like it was like every year you had that one big day to look forward to. Because eventually my dad stopped getting free tickets, but then
sure
by that time I was in high school, so I just buy my own ticket or ask my parents like, hey, for my birthday, can I get a Warped Tour ticket? And I had a job at 15 and a half because work permits and stuff, so
mm,
I was able to buy tickets pretty early. But
nice
that's the cool thing is like you learn about something, and then every time you go, you get the list of bands like months out, so you can start checking out new bands and stuff. You know what I mean? Be like, or you could go to FYE at the time and pick up the Warped Tour compilation and actually
oh
listen to
yeah
all the bands and be like, oh fuck, that slaps. And like then you look up more and go to
totally
LimeWire and download their other albums and stuff. So
and that was so much more I mean not to like shame music culture nowadays where like you have Spotify and Instagram and like you can be so much you can be so easily connected to music. I mean you can just go on Reddit and list a band that you love and then instantly find everything that you could ever want, just from people like sharing it. And I don't like I don't support gatekeeping as far as music goes. Like I think that's trash. But back then it was like, yeah, you did have to go to FYE and like dig through the bins. I mean, it's, I guess that's like old guy, like you used to have to work for your music, but it was so rewarding when you found it, or you go to Warp Tour and you just like that was what I always loved about that is you would like stumble upon like one of the smaller stages and you're like, what is this? This is sick. Like I love the energy of this. And then they become your like favorite band for that summer or even longer. Um, but yeah, that was the fun, like the hunt of
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. It made finding those bands much more special, I think. So
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned FYE because that was another way I found bands. I don't know if you remember, but FYE had those little headphone
Mhm.
stations where you could walk up and scan CDs and they'd play like a couple, you could like listen to a couple seconds of the tracks.
And
Just
they
like,
never worked too. That was
oh
the
yeah,
annoying shit. You'd be like, yes, what is this? And you'd be like, oh man, it doesn't work.
yeah, there'd be like three headphone things in the store and only like one of them works. So you'd have to wait in line and shit. But no, they were, but that was, I mean, I used to buy CDs off of shit like that because like I'd listen
Oh
to it and
yeah.
be like, fuck, this is like awesome. So I just buy the CD because, back then it wasn't like, you couldn't just go on Spotify and listen to it and check it out. You had to like either buy it or not listen to it type thing. So,
Dude,
uh,
we spent so much time in FYE. Like, well, first of all, my buddy Phil and I, we were obsessed with the movie Mallrats. So in middle school, our favorite thing to do was like, because we lived pretty close to like we could bike to our local mall.
you know,
So on the weekends, we'd just go hang out. We classic, just hanging out at the mall all day long and annoy the shit out of like all all the shop owners and stuff like that. They'd be like, "Oh, these kids again." But yeah, we would just hang out at FYE and just like dig through everything. And then it also, like you said, because of like having the listening station and stuff like that, it was a place to like listen to music that we couldn't listen to otherwise, because it wasn't on the radio and
yeah.
yeah, so it was fun. And then in high school, did you ever go to Relative Theory Records in high school? I don't know if it was still around by the time you would have been like hanging out in Norfolk.
That
Um,
sounds familiar. Like I maybe went to it like once or twice, but not like in my older years. It was when I was young. Like, because my uncle would go up to Virginia for stuff like that sometimes.
sure.
I think he might have taken me like once, but I don't
Mhm.
remember. Like,
That place was like another like treasure trove for us because in mostly in high school, I can't remember when they shut down. It was actually kind of lame to see because it's like it shut down and then they built an Urban Outfitters in its place, and it was like a legit like record store. They did shows and stuff like that, and we were like, what's the irony of a corporate place like Urban Outfitters, that's like, oh, we're capitalized teen angst and they sell records in Urban Outfitters, and it's like this actually used to be a record store. Like
yeah,
this sucks. But yeah, dude, Relative Theory was awesome, and it was like your classic like cool record shop that they had like all the different listening stations, whether it was putting on a record or CDs, and then like in the bins they had little tags and stuff like that that would be like if you like this band or so it felt like the true like, oh, if you want to go discover music, like this was the spot to go. And I miss that. That was definitely like a big part of like my high school days.
yeah.
So
And I know what you mean. A big part of my high school days was going to shows at Peppermint Beach Club, and
oh
that shit
yeah.
became a fucking sweet frog. And I was like, oh, dude, like it went from being one of the crazy, like, there's so many stories of what's like happened in that place that would make people eating sweet frog leave like quick, like wait, that
Yeah,
happened here? Like
that
I'm out.
was, well, I mean, we both played music. That was one of the last venues that, I think my band ever played. But yeah. Yeah, we played with some pretty like big today bands too in there, which was cool. Like we played with Follow Troy. It was
Oh
like
yeah,
Follow Troy and Number 12 Looks Like You, which is funny. They're doing like a tour again together,
yeah,
which makes me feel really old. But yeah, it was, to play a small little venue like that. And yeah, there's definitely some stuff that went down in there, sure.
yeah. No, I think the last show I went to there was Uh, I can never remember if the last show I went to there was Whitechapel and Attila, and this was before like Attila blew the fuck up like they are now. Like they had
Mhm.
an album out and they were opening for Whitechapel, and somebody set a fire in the pit during Whitechapel, so we all had to leave the building. And like Phil Bozeman's just outside chilling and talking to everybody because like at that time they were touring in a little white fucking cargo van with a trailer behind it, and they
That's
were.
so funny.
I think the only thing they had out at that time was like This Is Exile was out, but it was like just coming out and stuff. And then Attila only had like Soundtrack to a Party, I think, which is like their first album.
Sure.
And then, but I can't remember if it was that show or if it was what's the band? Fear Before the March of Flames.
Mm.
I don't know if you ever heard of them. It was
Oh
Fear
yeah.
Before. Yeah, it was Fear Before. Um, I wish I could remember now. It was a Drop Dead Gorgeous. I think
Mm.
Alisana played. It was like a bunch of those types of bands. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Uh, like very high pitch. I don't even trying. It
Yeah,
was
it was like that,
like,
like
uh,
metalcore crossover
yeah,
type stuff. Yeah.
the like MySpace core, pretty much.
Yes. Oh yeah.
But
Dude,
no,
that was like that was my whole era of high school and early college for sure.
yeah.
So,
No, but the one cool thing about like bands like that though, and just music in general and buying CDs is like one of my favorite things to find like back in the day was, and again, my dad would buy a bunch of CDs and like because they looked cool because he
mm,
just blew money back then, like an idiot, but and like sometimes I'd end up with the CDs, and one of the CDs he like gave me or he ended up giving me like a few Victory Records CDs, which for anybody
oh
that's
cool.
ever bought a Victory Records CD back in the day, it came with like Victory TV DVDs and you could like watch DVDs that had like all these music videos, and that like segued me into like a bunch of heavy ass bands. Like that's how I
Oh yeah.
found Bury Your Dead, Between the Buried and Me. That's how I found my favorite band of all time, Silverstein, which of course we'll get into like some like our favorite bands here in a second more and stuff. But
Sure.
it's just, and I think like I found those on like Tell All Your Friends by fucking Taking Back Sunday CD or a Newfound Glory CD or not Newfound Glory. I don't think they were on. They were always on
Mm,
Epitaph, but
yeah.
uh, it was somebody like that. Like it was like I know Taking Back. I think it was Taking Back Sunday was literally the one he bought, and I was like, okay. And it had like a Victory Records, and then of course from there I started buying them myself and getting them. But it's just wild that fucking nowadays if you buy a CD, it's like you can't go buy it like it's hard to find in like a store. You pretty much have to buy it online, and nowadays they come so like cheap and thrown together. It's like
Yeah.
uh because they don't make as much money on them and they don't sell, with streaming and stuff like that, that they don't put as much, not saying bands don't care, but you're almost better off to spend the money on a vinyl because they put care into those and like make sure that they have really
Totally.
cool like designs and a look to them more than the CDs these days. So
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, it's probably not a great take, but yeah, I can't remember the last time I bought a CD.
you know,
Like but I guess that's just the technology today too. It's not like we have a place to like. I mean, computers don't even have CD players on them anymore. Cars don't have them, so
you know,
why would you? But
no, I have like a Pantera CD that's been in my car for the for like a year just because I put one in there just in case my phone's ever dead. I have something to listen to pretty much like but and like I was collecting a lot of CDs for a while, but then I switched to vinyl because like vinyl overtook like
mm,
they put more care in it, uh but even vinyl I don't buy as often just because it's so pricey and stuff like that and because
yeah,
it's when I had to choose which Vice to collect, I went with my horror Blu-rays. So that collection builds more like as you can see I've run out of room, everything's just stacking on top and shit. So it's like but no, as far as like CDs and stuff, I probably bought one within the last 2 years, but I really
mm,
slowed down about a decade ago when the bear attack happened on my car because I had like 15 CDs in my car and I didn't get them back, and they were like really important CDs, like stuff that you wouldn't be able to like. They were important because you can't just find them, like Last 10 Seconds
sure.
of Life CDs.
Mm,
Like that band's a lower level band, and once you lose like those, some of their early records, it's like you can't just go buy that CD again. So.
oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's always a bummer. But
and then like some local bands that I really enjoyed had, maybe some of their CDs in there and stuff. So, yeah, I've kind of like cooled off on collecting. I still feel like people should support bands, but buy a
mm,
shirt, go see them
yeah,
at a show.
100%.
Like obviously I'm not gonna do a whole episode about music and say not support bands, but that's,
Yeah.
I just mean like, there's
Rip all their shit.
well, there's just better ways to support them now because a lot of people like some bands. I can't remember who uh it was that I was listening to, but it was somebody on like a podcast talking about like their music and stuff, and they're like, well, it won't be out on C. I think it was Drake because Drake and
Mm,
Josh just did that reunion show because they hadn't talked in years, so they just did a big podcast where they did like a two-part podcast thing, and even
mm,
Drake Bell, who's like got money for like from whatever he does and stuff, he straight up said in that podcast that he was like, I he's like, I got a new record coming out. He's like, there won't be physical copies, but you could pick it up on Bandcamp and blah 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 blah. and he was like, CDs just don't sell anymore or whatever. And I was like, damn, like, and it makes sense because like even hardcore bands like they'll sell CDs with like a pre-sale, and after that, and like they'll carry them on tour and stuff, but mostly they push like cassettes even over
Yeah, I was gonna
CDs
say
these days.
cassettes I feel like are more common to buy than than an
You know,
actual compact disc.
yeah.
But
I think I've actually bought a cassette more recently than a CD because I bought I know I bought Slow Bleeds, but there was somebody
mm,
else that had like a pretty cool gold tape. Oh, it was that band it was Whelm.
mm.
Keir Gilchrist's band from It Follows and stuff like that.
Huh. I'll have to check that out for sure.
It's heavy as fuck. They're awesome,
Nice.
but I mentioned Silverstein being my favorite band, and I'll dive a little bit more into that in a second. But do you have a favorite band of all time, or do you have some that you're like when people ask you what some of your favorite bands you automatically think of them?
Well, I wore my Jane Doe shirt today
Hell yeah.
specifically since I knew we were going to be talking about this kind of stuff. Yeah, I'd say Converge is probably like my most listened to band throughout like my entire life, especially getting into like louder music and stuff like that. And then I think that was like the band that like shaped me like wanting to like play guitar and stuff like that. Like I always was interested in guitar, but that was the one band that was like, okay, and I can't touch anything close to what Kurt does in Converge, but I mean that was the band that I was like they can't do wrong. And I think it was like my freshman year of high school, so it would have been geez, like 2002, I believe. And again, shout out to Mark who introduced me into like hardcore music and stuff like that. We were at like cross country practice, and I think we were heading to like a cross country meet, and we're all like listening to music, and I forget what I was listening to at the time, and he was like, "Oh, you like heavy music?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm kind of like getting interested in it." And he's like, "You should check out this band Converge," and I was like, "Oh, I never heard of it," you
Yeah.
know. And I think he gave me like Unloved and Weeded Out, that one album on CD, and it just stayed in my car, and I don't think I gave it back to him for like at least like a year and a half or so. And it was just it was the first because I don't know. I don't know if you went through that phase when it became like screaming music where you're like, this is kind of scary. Like it was like too much, you know? But
Yeah.
that was like the first band that it just like completely like didn't overwhelm me. I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is what's up. But yeah, so I don't know, just became obsessed with them and then heard Jane Doe, and that was like probably the first album that I was like, this is the most perfect album
Yeah.
I've ever heard. And I don't think I can ever not listen to that album on full. Like if I put it on the first song, like I have to listen from front to back. Like it's just, that good. But yeah, so
Oh yeah. No, I won't lie. I like Converge a lot, but they're one of those
mm,
bands I was so late to
mm,
that it's just hard for me to put them up there, you know what I mean? Because like I didn't hear about them until I
sure.
was like mid 20s, and even by then I was like just barely here. Well, I'd heard about them, but I was like it was one of those I was like, "Oh, cool." And then like just never checked them out, because like I had a couple buddies, Jane Doe is probably one of the most tattooed things
Mm.
on people, and I have two
Oh yeah.
friends literally that have like the Jane Doe tattoo. And I knew them for years before I even listened to Converge, and like I knew what the tattoo was, so that's
Hmm.
what I mean is like even after I'd heard about them, it's like for some reason it was just like a put off thing for me, like not put off
Sure.
like put off in a way of like but put off in a way of like, oh, I'll listen to it later, and then just never got to it. And then finally when I did, I was like, oh, this fucking rules. But now
Yeah.
they're so hard to like see because like they have such a big fan base that's like their shows sell out and they're always this.
Mm.
So I'm like, I like them, but it's just I never. I don't want to become too big of a fan because then I
Uh-huh.
have to have to jump in on
They're I mean,
the
unselfishly, I mean, or whatever, they're definitely like a fanboy type heavy band. Like that
yeah
was they were exploding when I was in high school. So I was definitely like a part of that wave like at the right time. Um but yeah, I mean, that was like the first band I was like, "Oh yeah, you talk to every guitar player that likes metal and hardcore music and you would mention, "Oh, do you like Kurt from, Converge?" And like, "Oh, he's the best." So it's like, "Oh yeah, like we're all we're all there." Um so yeah, they definitely, I guess had that kind of influence, but yeah, I don't know. It was just the first band that like I truly cared like what the guitar was just so different to me, and I was coming out of like getting into kind of like more like metalcore music, and a lot of that stuff is hard to play, like all the like, crazy like finger pull-offs and hammer-ons and stuff, the classic metalcore riff, but there was something like the dissonant chords that they would play in Converge. I was like, this is different than anything I've ever heard. And then like Jake Bannon, like his vocals like is so piercing that I was just like, how has his throat not like shot out from his, from his mouth? He's like giving everything. Um, and I think when I got that that when I got to borrow that first CD, and then when Jane Doe came out, I bought that at a record store in Norfolk, and I got that with they had their DVD, their tour DVD that they had for a while, and it was like all of this footage of them playing in Boston and stuff like that, and I was just like amazed, like they were like there is this show and it's like they're tearing down the room in it, and like I'm like this is like next level. Like I was like I've been to a couple like hardcore shows in Virginia Beach, but I've never seen anything quite like this. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, it just became like such an obsession. um and yeah, I don't think I've ever disliked any of their albums. So but yeah.
No, I love stuff like that. When you see when there's like those legendary videos that you like
Mhm.
always remember that shit. It's like Norma Jean at Hellfest back in the day is like
Yeah.
one of
Yeah.
the big videos. It's like or like the Chariot. Every video of them is just fucking insane. But no, I know what you
Yeah.
mean. And fun fact for anybody listening, my first guest of the show back in the day almost was Jacob Bannon, but um just communication was rough. And he emailed me and was like, "Hey man, I could do it in like 30 minutes." And I got like 45 minutes, and I was like, "Oh, I can't do it." And then after that, we just never linked up.
Mhm.
So uh, I always meant to like try to reach back out, and maybe now that we're back doing it, because you're a Converge fan, it's more
Mhm.
of a reason to reach out and stuff. Maybe we'll get him on the show with us or
Yeah,
something. Or
shoot. Even Nate Newton. I mean, he's the bass player for the band. He's from Virginia Beach, so like maybe having like that extra kind of like local connection could be kind of cool.
oh
So,
yeah. No,
but
but because like I said, I had friends that really enjoy them, so like I've always known about them, and I like know how much they're respected and loved. So I was like, they'd be a perfect guest, and that was pandemic time, so nobody was really doing much. But
sure.
uh, the way I got into Silverstein, like I already mentioned, was the Victory Records DVDs that came with the Victory Records CDs and stuff. And I think the first one I got was taking one of Taking Back Sunday's albums or something like that. There might be
Mhm.
another band, but it had Smash Into Pieces on it. The first single Silverstein ever put out, like on the Victory label and stuff. And I just fell in love with that song because at that point in my life, I was into like uh Newfound Glory. Like
Mhm.
I was already listening to them. They're like my favorite. Like I mentioned, they're my favorite pop punk band. But I was also listening to like Green Day and
Mhm.
Blink-182 and like all that stuff. But then I was also listening to Slipknot and Korn already, and even like Lamb of God. And so by listening to that stuff, when I heard Smash Into Pieces, I was like, oh, dude, somebody put the softer stuff that I really enjoy with that heavy shit. Like that was like the first
Mhm.
time I heard like pretty much, Silverstein kind of became more post-hardcore than metalcore.
Yeah,
I hate subgenres because they're so fucking nitpicky and stuff.
sure.
Um, but I don't like that one's kind of like easy to kind of lock in,
Mhm.
because they're like get called like Godfathers of, well, not Godfathers, but they get called one of the like top post-hardcore bands, at least in my opinion. So that might just be biased, but they so that was the first time I heard that, and I really just burnt that song out. Like I didn't really get too into that first record until
Mhm.
later, when Broken is Easily Fixed. But they put out when they actually put out their next album, Discovering the Waterfront, I bought that CD, and like literally from front to back, it's like one of my favorite CDs of all time, if not my favorite CD of all time.
Mhm.
So then they put out two more records after that with Arrivals and Departures and A Shipwreck in the Sand, and those first four records for me are just like perfect. So uh,
Sure.
I just never really like grew out of them. Like when they put out records to this day, I still check them out and stuff. One of their records might be one of the like last ones I bought. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called Infinite or something like that. But and then they did like this cool thing during the pandemic where they did like a 4 night show where they played like different albums and different stuff, and it was like very theatrical. And like I paid to like watch that and stuff. It was super fun. So
Oh, that's awesome.
they're one of my favorite bands. I've had Josh, the guitar player, on the show before. I've tried to get some of the other guys. I'm still gonna try in the future, of course. But No, they're just one of my favorites. And then it's one of those things that as I get older, I grow into liking like heavier stuff more than that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But I'm never gonna like stop having them as my favorite just because of that. You know, I'm never gonna outgrow my favorite band just because
Oh yeah,
my
definitely.
music taste ain't there anymore. You know, like Converge is a band I'd still fuck with to this day, but you know, because of that sound and stuff. But like
Mhm.
Silverstein, if a band came out today that sounded like Silverstein, I don't know that I'd be able to attach to them the same way. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, and there was, I think, I mean, Converge maybe wasn't like that much for me, but some of those bands, like, I mean, shit, even seeing bands like I love Saves the Day. That's like one of my favorite, what I would consider pop punk band. And it's funny, like seeing them, if I tried to listen to Saves the Day like you said, if a band sounded exactly like Through Being Cool, like I don't know if I'd be as into that right away, but there's something about like being younger, seeing a band that is probably in their mid to late 20s at that time, so there's like that young, youthful angst that like seems like you guys, understand each other,
Yeah.
whereas like I don't know, it just has a younger sound to it. So even with like pop punk, like the pop punk stuff that I like more now, um, you know, drug churches and pop punk, but I would say they're more on the hardcore spectrum, but like they have that like older grit to it, or like, like it's funny, I never liked Hot Water Music in high school, but then it was like, 10 years ago, I was like, man, Hot Water Music is tight.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was like, I get it now. I'm an old guy. I like Hot
Right.
Water Music. So I don't know. I think I get what you're saying. I think it's it's hard to see like teenagers and like be like, yeah, I relate to that,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, all that music was, I'm kind of curious. Like, I mean, that kind of touches on sort of like I thought I had. Like, what do you think got you into like heavy music other than like just liking it for whatever reason?
Um, I guess at the time I guess because it felt well, I don't know. Growing up, like I said, my uncle got me into it kind of early with like
Mhm.
Metallica and stuff like that. So I guess I was almost kind of like, oh, this is who I look up to. You know, let me listen to
Sure.
what he listens to. But at the same time, I guess like when I went to school, you know, and I was like, yo, have you heard fucking Metallica? And people were like,
Mhm.
no, but Mambo number five. And I'm like,
Yeah.
like, okay. Like the fact that I
Yeah.
like cared about music early, you know,
Sure.
I just cared about music in general. So like musicianship mattered. And you don't really get that in others. I mean, of course, like one of my favorite bands, like honestly, to till today is Creedence Clearwater Revival,
Hell yeah.
and it's
Who
one of
doesn't
those
love that? We live in the South, so I think it's
right,
kind of a sin if you don't like Creedence. So,
right, and it's one of those things that it's just like musicianship is like something that I attached to
sure.
early on because you know I've been playing guitar since I was like 11 and you know
Mhm.
like my family's always played and you know sang and stuff so music has always been around but I think what made me attached to that heavy stuff was that it was like plus I don't know like I guess same thing with like horror movies, you know, like that adrenaline rush you get from it.
Sure.
Like, especially once we started getting old enough to go to shows, man, there's nothing like going to like a
Oh,
fucking
totally.
crazy hardcore show and just even if you don't get in the you know in the pit, but you're in the crowd, it's still just
Mhm.
like the energy's there and everything, you know. So
Yeah, I think that's got to be it. I mean, there was just like, especially we were in that bubble of when like heavy music like really exploded. So is that rawness to it. I mean, it's like discovering skateboarding,
you know,
or it's something like that. It was this, I think there's just people that need that kind of like energy release, and that was like a safe way to like be a part of that. Um, but yeah, because I think, I mean, even like getting into hardcore music was kind of like weirdly for me was, uh, like I had friends that were like, oh yeah, I'm straight edge, and so I definitely like went down that route for a little bit, but it was like, oh, I can like listen to like loud, aggressive music that feels like dangerous, but like everybody was like not drinking, and there was like a safety to it, like I think I was always afraid of like, you know, having to deal with that in high school, like, oh, the kids that are going to want you to party and do this and that. And so I was like, oh, this, like, I could still like be into like loud, aggressive punk rock music and it feels cool and it like ties in with skateboarding. But like, I think that just kind of like opened the door to that,
yeah.
So, but
No, I know exactly what you mean. It's like that's kind of what did it for me too, is just kind of being there like skateboarding and like doing other things and it kind of led to like for instance, like I said, I got into metalcore first, and by metalcore I mean like like I set my friends on fire type shit. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Where it's like
Sure.
kind of laughable when you look back on it now and stuff. Like no hate on them, I still enjoy that record
Mhm.
and in a nostalgia way. But definitely again, if I listen to it now, like if that was a new band, I'd be like, what the fuck's this shit? But like going to shows at like these small clubs that were putting those bands on and then seeing a flyer for fucking like Bane or
Oh yeah.
Terror, you saw these like flyers and all of a sudden you're like, dude, I gotta check like what's these band,
Mhm.
like that flyer looks fucking sick. So next thing you know, you're listening to them and you already have like you said, like we both mentioned Hatebreed was a band we were
Mhm.
kind of introduced a little early on. When you have like that little like between that and then playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater and even Matt Hoffman BMX had
Mhm.
a band in DC by fucking Bad Brains on it. Like that game had a
Yep.
great soundtrack too. Um, it pretty much like you already had these like punk and hardcore songs or like music that you liked in the past, like kind of implemented in your like for music,
Mhm.
but you just haven't heard it yet or been able to unlock it. So like find the bands that actually unlock like that part of it. So once you finally hear the name, check that band out, and you're like, oh shit, like
Mhm.
this sounds like fucking heavy. It's
Mhm.
fast and it sounds raw as shit. That's one thing I like about like hardcore and stuff is how raw
Sure.
they're
Yeah.
willing to sound. Whereas some of this like a lot of the heavier stuff, like you listen to a Slipknot record, it's awesome, but it sounds so fucking produced. It's just and
Sure.
that some of that style like calls for it, but just as far as like that stuff just doesn't appeal to me as much anymore. That really
Mhm.
polished stuff. I like stuff that sounds a little rougher and like that's why I like bands like End It and
Mhm.
Slope is still a little bit more polished, but not compared to like you put Slope next to fucking uh Ghost. They're definitely nowhere near as
Sure.
polished. You
Sure.
know what I
Sure.
mean? So
Sure. Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
and I don't
Uh,
like Ghost for anybody listening. No hate. If you like, I know they have big fans, and I'm glad
Huge
you like them,
fans.
but not
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. There's something for everybody. I mean, there's plenty of stuff that I don't like. Like I grew up in the South, but I literally cannot stand any form of country music, and like
Yeah.
country's having like the biggest revival right now, and like and pop music and everything, and I'm just like, why? Please,
Yeah.
please, please go away. But hey, I'm happy people love it, because at the same time, I wouldn't want anybody to tell me that I can't listen to the music that I like. So,
Oh yeah.
so I feel that. I'm curious, this random question, but what's the scariest show you've ever been to? Like where you were just like, I'm gonna die. Whether it was like just scary because you were young and you're like, I've never experienced anything like this, or like more recently where you're like, this is like getting out of hand.
Yeah. Um, I don't know
Or
if
or or was it ever never scary for you?
I've never been to one that I was like I was too scared, I guess, just because
Mm,
like I've always been with like a decent crowd of friends, so like I was never worried about
sure,
like getting jumped or uh and I would always like if I would get like I usually don't, I'll be honest, I'm not usually a mosher, but like I'll stand on the
mhm,
outside of the pit, so like I'll get hit every now and
sure.
then, but I usually if I'm standing on the outside of the pit, I watch the pit more than the band because
Sure.
like smart, act smart,
Ah.
shop smart, S smart. But no, I think one of the craziest shows I've ever been to was probably, and it's not crazy as in like I was, well, I guess that doesn't answer the question then because
Mm,
yes, like what was the scariest show, not what was the craziest show. This is the craziest show. I really always think about United Blood when Blind Justice played that one year and they were like
mm.
putting each other through the tables and shit.
I mean, I
Um,
think I think United Blood is definitely a heavy hitter for some scary shows.
yeah. But I did see Incendiary and fuck, who was with Incendiary? Oh, Take Offense. It was
Mm,
Incendiary and Take Offense at the Riff House Pub in Chesapeake. Which,
mm,
if anybody's been there, that's literally on Bainbridge Boulevard. If you drive down Bainbridge Boulevard, you'll be like looking every which way, like where the fuck is a show? Because nothing looks
uh-huh,
like it should have a show. And
sure.
it's the dive bar. It's
Mm.
that place literally still shouldn't be having shows and still does. Like that's where I went and saw Zayo a few weeks back, and they just had fucking Bayway there. I was like, that fucking was probably scary
That's
too.
funny.
But no, that was a crazy show. That was probably one of the most packed shows I'd been to, and it was pretty crazy. But uh, I don't know. There was a couple crazy shows up in Virginia Beach, but I feel like
Mhm,
everything always like did a like I feel like I always did a good job of uh knowing what craziness the show was gonna get to. So being in a
sure,
safe
sure.
spot. You know what I mean? Like I've seen some crazy shows, but I was never scared because I was like, I know
Mm,
it's gonna be crazy, so I'm gonna be over here. Like
sure.
I will say we played a show one time and somebody while we were playing it, got punched in the face and their glasses shattered into their eye,
Oh my
and they
gosh.
had to go like to the
Holy shit.
hospital. And that was like scary, but like in a different
Yeah.
sense because I was like, oh,
Yeah,
are they gonna
yeah.
sue or like, like not sue us, but it was a fucking house show. It was like a we were in a garage, so it was.
Damn. Yeah, that's crazy.
What about you?
Uh, so I think the one that always comes to mind was when I was in college, Gorilla Biscuits came because I went to school in Richmond, so many good like hardcore shows and metal shows, like between all the bands that are associated just with the area.
Yeah,
But there was a Gorilla Biscuits show at Alley Cats. Rest in peace to Alley Cats. And I remember thinking like, oh yeah, this is gonna be sick. Like, Gorilla Biscuits, like classic, and you wouldn't particularly call them super heavy if you just listen to them, like
yeah.
it's just like old school hardcore. Um, and that like their I think what is the song Start Today or whatever comes on and it's got like the trumpet like or whatever and just the place just unloaded. And so I think it was like that level of like I did not expect that from them and like people just like head walking and like I was just like I'm gonna die in here and I was on the outside and it was just like it felt like you were almost targeted being on the outside. Like it was like you either got to be in the chaos or like if you're on the fringe, like I was just watching like every like I don't know. I kind of have this joke about like classic hardcore kids. You know how hardcore kids have that look in their eyes?
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Um, and and so like you would just be looking for that one dude like in the corner of the room and they would maybe like kind of look at you and you'd be like, "Oh God, no.
He's gonna
Like this
hit
dude's
me.
gonna try to kill me. Like he saw me like I'm gonna die." And so yeah, so that was weirdly enough that was probably like the scariest show I've ever been to, which I had no expectation of it being that violent. Um but it was also super fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
I did see Mongoloids in Rude Awakening one time, and it was like
Oh yeah, I could see that
it was
being
back when Mongoloids like stopped like was like they still toured to this day now, but like it was like their final like tour back then.
Mhm.
I think it was like 2017. No, it had to be earlier than that because I think me and Lauren weren't
Sure.
even if we were together, we were like freshly together. But no, it was like early, and they that was pretty nuts. Plus, every time I see Paper Trail in Virginia Beach, fucking Virginia Beach goes crazy for them because they're like
Oh,
local, you know.
yeah.
Kind of like Richmond does for Down to Nothing and Brace War
Oh
and stuff
yeah.
like that. So
Yeah, I mean yeah, I mean I grew up in Chesapeake, so I grew up just next to Virginia Beach pretty much. And but yeah, Virginia Beach had a really good scene, I mean they still do. But yeah, people never seem to not show up to those kind of shows and bring the ruckus for sure.
yeah,
Um
I just went Sunday to Madball and Paper Trail, and that was practically sold out. And then tonight I'm going to Agnostic Front and Murphy's Law, and that's
oh
pretty much
sick.
almost sold out too. So
Nice. I'm pretty sure did you see the tour that, or not tour, but the show Memorial Weekend that got announced with
uh,
you mentioned Incendiary, but it's like
Nails, fucking
Nails,
yeah,
Incendiary, Drug Church, which who I love,
Spirit World
Enforced,
too, I think. Which
Spirit World, um, and some other bangers too. Uh, but
I know I was tempted for that. We got to plan our trip to fucking Scowl, which they got a new record coming out, and then
oh
Drain and
yeah,
fucking Koyo. Koyo's a good band that like kind of captures like some of that early pop punk, like Set Your Goals and
yeah, I
stuff like
was
that.
kind of
So
checking them out a little bit too. I'd be excited. I'm excited for that show. That'll be fun. I need to have tickets gone on sale for that yet? I'm sure that's
it's at the warehouse. They don't sell tickets, so
oh shoot.
you gotta
Okay. So it's
yeah, you gotta ask for
oh,
that address. But I already have it, so we're good on it. But it's one of those.
okay.
Yeah, it's one of those that they never like. It's not like because it on all the flyers it says just ask for the address. You know what I mean? So
Gotcha.
they don't gatekeep the show. It's just to keep like the cops from coming. The only time they've ever gatekeeped is one time one of those fucking like visiting RVA pages
Oh
tried to
gosh.
like tried to come to a show and they're like no, like people were commenting like don't give them
Please
the
don't.
address. Don't. And I was like please don't like
Dang. I
all of a
wonder if
sudden
that's
you
gonna sell out though. So is it just you got to get there early kind of thing?
yeah, but they don't. That's another problem though is they don't cut
Oh
off
shit.
shows because I almost went to Tsunami there and
Oh gosh.
And I'm glad I didn't because they said that they didn't cut off at the time and it was
Uh,
rainy and hot. So it was like
oh,
rough in there because it was like just wall to wall people. But
hell
uh
yeah. Well, that's kind of fun too. I mean, that's so yeah, I guess on that topic, not necessarily scary shows, whether it's a show you played or were part of, like, is there any like memorable shows that you can think of that you're just like, this should never have happened, but it did kind of thing? I don't know.
I can't really think of anything too much that like there's a place out in Murfreesboro, North Carolina, and I'm
Mhm.
sure not many people listening even know where the hell that is, but it's like the fact that it has a food line is astonishing. Other than that, it has like a McDonald's and that's it. And
Probably Dollar Tree,
yeah,
right? Dollar Tree Country.
probably by now, I'm sure, but
Sure, sure. Okay.
but back then they had this place called Zach's Coffee House, and they used to
Mm,
randomly get bands and stuff like that. And Within the Ruins played there one time,
gosh.
and that was pretty cool. But they would get random shit like a Hero of Fake. I don't know if you remember that band. They were like
Mm,
A band. They were like in the later years of Victory, a band that they were trying to push. And
okay.
because the Hero of Fake played there, I wasn't in the band at the time, but my buddies were, so they'd always play there, and I'd just go because it's like fucking $10 show, like an hour away. And
Sure.
and it didn't matter who the bands were, but they'd have like a girl out there like repping fucking Victory Records and like giving out free shit. And
That's cool.
they once had that girl Julia, Mistress Julia from Uranium on Fuse TV and stuff come out there for like a battle of the bands to open for Ozfest and stuff. And
Nice.
they always had some cool shit out there, but other than that, I can't really think of anything too much that like was super crazy. I did get to see I was at the United Blood that Hatebreed played where they did like requests and
Mm,
shit. That was pretty cool.
that's cool.
Um, but nah, like as far as I did, not like in the heavy world, but I saw Rush one time. That was fucking sickest shit I've
Sick.
ever seen. Yeah.
Nice.
I'll try to think of some though while do you have any? Because I'll try to think of some more, but
Yeah, I don't know. I like, not that any of the shows were like crazy, but I do remember the band that I was in high school. Like, we played a couple of times at this place in South Norfolk, and if anybody knows the Hampton Roads area, knows that South Norfolk is not the nicest place.
yeah.
But we played this venue that was called Jimmy's Underground Playground, which is the worst name for any venue. And it was like, you roll down the street and it was just like a brick cube, like
Yeah.
a cement brick cube. It had a metal like gated door, as like with a lock, and then when you came in, it didn't even have a like full like normal door. It was just like black draped curtains or whatever. You had to push your way through that into this like super creepy, like just dark box. There wasn't I don't even think there was like a bar or anything. Like, there was like a table that you could buy like soft drinks and stuff like that. I don't remember if they sold alcohol. They probably couldn't.
Yeah.
And then there was a stage. It was like super small, and then like the backdrop was just like, it was all broken pieces of glass like glued together on a wall, and dude, it was just like, and I'm like 15, like playing shows at this, like asking our parents if we don't even have like driver's license. Like, can we borrow the car? I got a learner's permit, um, playing this venue that like has every like parents like nightmare of thinking their
Yeah.
kid is going going to. But yeah, so I remember that place very distinctly. Nothing bad ever happened, but I mean, I think that was that like kind of like the fun part of being in bands and being into that is like that youthful ignorance of like, you don't have any like street fears at that age, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So you're just like, yeah, I'm down to do whatever. So, um, but that I'm trying to think what else as far as like anything like weird and memorable. Um, Probably my second favorite band of all time is The Locust, which
Oh
you
yeah.
had Justin Pearson on. Pretty much, so I was really into Converge, and I was like going down like a hardcore path, and then it got super like the latter years of high school and all through college, I was just like really into like that like noisy era of heavy music. So The Locust, Daughters, like uh Blood Brothers, uh and Albatross, like anything that was like weird or anything that was on 31G. But anyways, segue. I was at a Locust show in Baltimore, and the whole time they're playing, and I'm like down, and my friends went. They were like I'm tired. I'm gonna go sit on the balcony, and I'm like playing a song. And I'm like looking up at them, and they keep like pointing, like and they're like, oh, like trying to mouth something. I'm like, yeah, rock on. Like, I'm
Yeah.
enjoying the show too. This is sick. And like they kept pointing, and they came down after their set, and they're like, dude, you were standing right next to John Waters the entire set for the Locust. And I was like, what? I was like, why didn't you say something? They're like, we were trying. Like you couldn't understand what we were trying to yell at you. And I was like, oh man. They're like, you were just right by him the whole set, just completely oblivious. Because I guess he loves the Locust and had them like in some of his films. He did a music video for them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so
I just watched Cecil B. Demented for the first time the other day, and it has a
mm,
bunch of Locust songs in it.
yeah. But yeah, so I guess that's like, I don't know, cool, fun music story. But I
Yeah.
don't know. That's the best part about going to see live music, and especially like playing in bands. Like you get to like experience some of that stuff, and shows that aren't like arena shows. Like I mean, those can be fun.
Yeah.
Like I like an arena show every once in a while, but like nothing is better than like a small occupancy, like the Black Cat in DC, or like, I mean, even nowadays, like the Norva feels big,
Yeah.
like seeing shows at Peppermint Beach Club. Like that's the stuff that like I remember most in life, because you're like, I saw this band before they were big, and it was awesome, best night ever, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So, but
I know exactly what you mean. That's like the way fucking Parkway Drive is big now. Like I saw
mhm,
them at Peppermint Beach Club with Stick to Your Guns and fucking My Children, My Bride, and that shit was like
mhm,
crazy, to see those three bands in something so small and stuff. Just considering where they're at now, especially even Stick to Your Guns is way big compared to that,
mhm.
but uh no, I'm with you. It's and that's the thing is like we also go to the stuff and we've been going to it since we were teenagers. So some of the stuff becomes normal where some people might go to one of the like at Madball, dude got fought the way the fuck like he got beat his ass beat all the way out the door. And like I went to go pee and they're like wiping blood off the floor and like
Sure.
but like I'm used to that. So like when you ask what's crazy, that's not coming to mind because I'm like that's pretty much every hardcore show. Somebody gets their ass
Yeah.
kicked because they can't handle it or they do too much and when they're told to
Yeah.
stop, they don't stop. So uh it's like that kind of stuff becomes so normal that it's like there's something that crazy at almost every show that I go to, but it's not crazy enough to like impact, it might impact somebody that isn't into the genre way more than it would
Sure.
impact you or me. If we're at a show and we're all of a sudden the guy next to us is getting his fucking head kicked in, we're just gonna be like, oh damn, what did he do? You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, holy fuck, but I mean, every now and then it's something like, and I said kicked in, but like if it like truly got kicked in, it would change, it'd be a different
Oh yeah,
story.
that would
But
be
like,
that'd be the worst thing ever.
like I mentioned, the guy getting his glasses punched into his eye. I've seen people get their fucking
Scary.
get knocked out, and that wasn't as crazy as
Mhm.
that. Because I'm like, that could, you blind from, now on. My wife at our last, uh, my band's name was Isolationist. At our last show,
Mhm.
somebody front, well, we it did one reunion show after that, and that was it. But we did
Mhm.
like at our last like show that we played, somebody first song ran across the stage and front flipped off and landed on like the crowd, and my wife was at the back of that crowd because it was like side stage, and
Mhm.
it like forced her against the wall and like separated her shoulder completely. And
Damn.
I didn't even know. All of a sudden, my wife's missing like three songs in. Like she was missing like from the first song, but the way that we opened the set, we played like an intro into the first song, and then didn't really like we kind of rang out the end of the first song and go right into the second song. So it was like it was a good minute before I was even like looking side stage or chilling,
Mhm.
checking the tuning or anything. And so by the time I like noticed that she was gone, I didn't even realize what happened. And when I got so I played like a whole nother 30 minutes, and when I got done, she was still just like in screaming pain and stuff. And she was, we were young. She didn't have insurance, so she was like, I just want to go home and go to
Yeah.
sleep. And so she went the next day and found out that her shoulder was that fucked up. We had a buddy that had a dad chiropractor. So luckily he had like a X-ray machine at his, office and stuff.
Dang.
And so he did X-rays, and that's how we found out. And he was like, you could just let it heal up. He's like, it just will be like, he's like, it might get some soreness here and there, but like it'll heal itself. So that shit was
Sure.
rough, but
Crazy.
that was only most.
Yeah.
But like if that happened to a stranger, I wouldn't even think about it. You know what I mean? So it's like
Sure.
not to be mean, but
They're
I'm like,
fine.
like
It's fine. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. There's, and that is like, I think that's like kind of like a lot. I mean, there are definitely shows that it gets out of hand, and there's jerks that like are trying to just be violent to be violent, and they ruin the fun for everybody. But I mean, you go to a lot of these shows, and it's the nicest teddy bear people that are looking out for each other, or like if you bop somebody, they're like, oh, I'm gonna get you back, or you laugh about it. So it's it is what it is. But But
I
yeah.
actually do have a story that I just thought about with it's kind of not really my fault because like you tell people like we talked about like I mentioned earlier, like we let people know, like you're aware of the situation, and that's why it's never scary because it's like, okay, I know that if I punch this person in the face because I'm mad, these 15 dudes are gonna beat the dog shit out of me, so I'm just gonna stay away from that.
Sure.
Like I know that certain people aren't safe, and also like going to shows, like I know who those people are. I'm like they at least recognize my face, and I'm cool with them and stuff, and not all of them. I'm just saying like I know well enough that like not to fuck with certain people
Sure.
when I was playing in a band and starting out, you play shows and promoters are like, "Hey, can you pre-sell this amount of tickets, to help out the
Hmm.
show?" And we had a pre-sale. It was like I think it was like us, Gideon. I
Uh,
can't remember who else was on it. It was like I think it was supposed to be like a bunch of cool bands and a couple of them dropped,
hmm.
but it ended up being the like Gideon was the headliner or whatever. So, and we were opening up and like we had already done playing and like another opener was playing and I had invited a buddy of mine and when I told him about it, he's like, "Oh, dude, we got a fucking bachelor party that night. So I'm gonna get all these and these. This is like a bro dude that like
Hmm.
listens to like A Day to Remember and stuff, but he don't really know about like fucking like Gideon is kind of like
Sure.
teetering even a little bit more into the they're still metalcore, but like he probably has never listened to Terror or nothing like
A
that.
bit more niche, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
So yeah, like closer to the mainstream. I say in quotes because like it's
Uh,
still not mainstream, but so either way, he comes and brings like an entire bachelor party full of guys, and they're already shit faced when they show up to the
oh
show.
no.
So like I'm just sitting there chilling, and like I see him like in the crowd, like too far away from me to do anything if I wanted to help him out, but he like does something, and somebody like whispers in his ear to calm the fuck down.
Damn.
And like, I just see a fucking switch flipping him, and like the guy goes to walk away from him, and my friend like attacked the guy, and like that was like the end of my friend because as soon as he attacked him, like 10 people jumped on him, then his like group tried to jump on, and I was like, dude, like I told you, like you guys can come, like because I told him ahead of time, like come have fun. I was like, just be careful moshing. I was like, because like these dudes don't fuck around, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
he didn't listen and he got fucking
It's true. I mean, and that sucks when that happens. I mean, that honestly, like that was kind of, I used to in high school, and this isn't, I have no beef against straight edge kids or anything, but I definitely like when I got to Richmond and I saw some of that culture and like kids specifically like targeting drunk people just to fight them and then ganging up on them. Like this dude is already like, intoxicated.
yeah.
He has no business fighting anybody, and you're gonna like four of you go against one dude. Like, I don't know. That's where things like I was just like, ah shit. I don't know if I don't like that. I like when it's all fun and we're all there and but yeah, I don't love when it gets out of hand. And I'm also just not like my inclination is not to fight. I'm like, yep, I'm gonna be the first dude to run in any of those kind of situations. Like I'm just gonna bounce. I don't like that kind of altercation, um, but yeah, so it is a bummer when it gets ruined. The party gets ruined by that, but there is always the guy that's had a few too much to drink that's like, oh yeah, I feel like getting rowdy, and I'm
Yeah.
like, you see it every time. You're like, oh no, this is not gonna go well.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's like that was what made me feel bad. I was like, I'm watching this happen, and I know I can't
Mhm.
do anything to stop it. So I'm like, oh, because like by the time he like reacted, I was like, oh, is that? Oh, no! I was like, don't he's getting his ass kicked now. And of
Yeah.
course, like because everybody knows everybody, they kicked them, and of course, my buddy did start it, but
Mhm.
and I say my buddy, I don't know, I haven't talked to this dude in fucking 15 years now, but at the time we were friends,
Sure.
and not because he's a bad dude, just because. I was friends with his girlfriend and him, and then when they split up, I kind of stopped being friends with both of them, type thing. And once I saw it happen, and it was one of those things that was so quick that by the time I would have got to him, he would have been kicked out anyways. But
Mhm.
for anybody wondering, this was at Shaka's, and which is not a place
Chakas.
anymore, so I could say it. But if you don't know what Shaka's is, if you've ever seen the viral video of that fucking bodyguard.
Oh,
Have you
I
seen the
remember that.
video? Yeah, where
Mhm.
the two guys are chirping. Pretty much it's two like real small skinny guys and like one big ass bodyguard that's kind of wearing like a button up shirt. And the
Mhm.
two skinny guys, one of the guys says he's gonna go get a gun and like walks out and comes right back in without a gun, obviously. And the
Mhm.
dude picks him up and slams him on the ground unconscious. And the dude's wearing like a Canadian tuxedo, I guess. Is like he's
I
wearing
do
like
remember.
all denim. That shit went viral as fuck, and I was like, oh, I've been there. I'm glad that wasn't me.
Yeah, when we were in high school, that place was called Club Excess, I think. But but yeah, I
Oh,
remember
yeah.
that place.
Well, before we wrap up, do you have anything else you want to share? Was there any other topics on your mind? related to the music stuff.
Well, I guess like if we're talking origins, because you mentioned, obviously like we're gonna mostly talk about heavy stuff, but I guess with origins, like let's take a moment to talk about the sweeter side of music that we also enjoy, because we probably won't talk about that too much on the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd be curious, like when you're not smashing your head through a wall because of listening to some heavy stuff, what is on your rotation?
Well, earlier I said that Discovering the Waterfront might be my favorite record of all time. It's actually
Hmm.
second favorite. My
Okay.
favorite record of all time is Purple Rain by Prince and the
Oh
Revolution.
yeah.
I
Nice.
love me some fucking Prince. Dude's such an underrated guitar player, and I mean, I know he gets his due from the right people, but I feel like some
Sure.
people just look at him as a songwriter, but the dude could play the fuck out of a guitar.
Mm.
So I love Prince. Growing up, I mean, I loved listening to stuff my mom listened to. So we went and saw Alanis Morissette a few years ago, and I told Lauren
Oh,
I'd go
sick.
again. But I listen to even nowadays. I listen to a lot of like that pops. Some of the pop stars. I listen to Chapel, Sabrina Carpenter.
Sure.
Uh, I've been listening to a lot of Lola Young lately. I don't know if you've heard her, but
Mm-mm.
she sings that song "Messy and Conceited." And,
Oh, as soon as you said the word, I know 100%
yeah,
what you're talking about. Because I have a daughter who's 12, so
yeah.
I hear all that stuff for sure. Yeah, that's cool.
And then
That's
of course
funny.
I did listen to like and then like I listened to like Sheryl Crow growing up, and
Mm.
I'm trying to think if there's like some other like softer. I mean, when I was a kid, like when I was a kid, my favorite fucking group was Spice Girls. Like when I was a little
Really?
kid, like my mom bought me the Spice World movie, the Spice
Uh,
Girls the video game, like everything. I was into it, and then I was into fucking boy bands when I was a little kid. But I mean, of course, like that shit all happened when I was like, from like 7 to 10 years old
sure, sure.
was like the height of that shit. So it was so easy. Like my hit clip.
Uh,
Fucking with NSYNC's Bye Bye Bye, I had a fucking
uh,
hit clip of that. The toothbrush that would fucking sing LFO to you while you're fucking brushing your teeth.
that's awesome.
But and then
Nice.
of course I love hip hop too. I know you said
Mm.
softer side, but like fucking I
Sure.
love like Wu-Tang Clan is like one of my favorite is my favorite hip hop group of all time. I also love Outkast, fucking
Mm.
Flatbush Zombies, J. Cole. I'm like into that type of stuff. Anything pro era or Dreamville, I really like.
Gotcha.
So what about
Nice.
you?
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I similar kind of thing with like listening to music that your parents played, like because my mom would drive me around everywhere and I wasn't ever allowed to like touch the radio, and she just always had it on like oldies radio. So like early starting off, like my music introduction was like Beatles and Beach Boys and all that kind of stuff, Rolling Stones, all that kind of like early, kind of rock and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I always had a soft spot for anything that sounded like California hippie, West Coast, like, I got kind of like, I'm super into surfing and stuff like that. So I feel like in the mid 2000s, like with like the growth of like indie rock bands like MGMT and like the OCs and like King Gizzard, like there's a lot of that like what I would consider like garage rock inspired by like the older era, that feels surfy and stuff like that. So I listen to like a lot of that kind of stuff
Oh yeah.
still. There's a band, although they're not a band anymore, Cobra Man. We've
Oh
talked
yeah.
about them, like obsessed with that band. They're just a complete vibe, Los Angeles power disco, just like fun synthy stuff. Like I love synthy kind of like whether it's like new wave, kind of like, or vaporwave, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So I dig that kind of stuff. Um, one of my other favorite bands, and they have a new album coming up. They just released a new song, is this band called the Budos Band. Have you
Oh
ever
yeah.
heard of them?
Mm.
They're like Afrobeat, but so you would expect they sound like 1960s like Afrobeat, like full on just instrumental, a lot of like horns and um like 60s, 70s era. Sounds like I call it like James Bond, like villain, like jungle music. It's kind of what it sounds like. It's perfect for a tiki bar. Um and but their current band, and you would expect them to be like this older group of dudes, but then you look at them and half of them, they're all like look like just like metalheads,
Oh yeah.
like stoner metalheads, like, and they even classify their music as metal music. Like they're like, we're just playing like Afrobeat version of Black Sabbath, without any vocals. And they're good, dude. Like it is easiest listen to summer music, but it's good. I don't think you can't have a barbecue at your house and
Yeah.
listen to them and be upset. Like it's just it fits the vibe pretty well. Um, but yeah, I'd say like, that's kind of more of my softer rotation, if you will. I don't really
Yeah.
listen to a lot of rap music. It's something that like just wasn't really like introduced to me as a kid, and I didn't have friends that were really into it. So, I'll go back and like listen to, Wu-Tang and stuff like that. I like the vibe of that. But because I didn't have that influence, it just wasn't really like, I guess honestly, in a way that like you kind of talked about Converge, like I can listen to Wu-Tang and be like, this is sick, sounds cool, but like it doesn't resonate with me because I didn't, I feel like that's one of those like rap groups like you discover in high school and you're like, oh man, like,
Yeah.
you get part of their whole universe and everything. So I just kind of missed out a little bit, I guess. But
Oh yeah. Now, the only other thing I want to mention, since you said the good mood thing, was one of my favorite good mood songs is "When Did Your Heart Go Missing" by Rooney. I don't know if you know what song I'm talking about, but literally, like whenever I'm like just want to hear a song real quick, that's 99% of the time the song I put on. And then of course I do want to shout out that I like the White Stripes. They're kind of
I was like,
not really I mean, they're like
yeah,
alt rock, I guess,
yeah, sure, sure.
but
Yeah.
no, I love me, and I even like Jack White by himself and stuff. I know some people don't
Mm,
like that he's a weirdo, but I love the fact that he opened up his own record fucking printing company pretty much
mm,
to like help save the fact that like during the pandemic, record printing or vinyl printing was just vinyl pressing. That way nobody's in the
mm.
comments like that's not what it's called. Uh,
How
like
dare you?
right, he pretty much like helped, while meanwhile, like as much as I love Adele, she was out there just fucking flooding Walmart with her vinyl records that
Mm,
nobody's gonna buy. Meanwhile, you got bands that really can only make money if they sell their pre-orders, and then people have to wait
mm.
fucking 2 years for the fucking album. And it's
Sure.
like it sucked to watch like these big mainstream artists that nobody's interested. Like people love them, but they're not gonna buy their
Mm,
records. You know what I mean? That's not the type of fans they have. And
sure.
so it just sucked watching them like clog up the vinyl pressing plants, and then for him to do something like open his own plant to help, even if it's only pressing his own records, at least he's not like taking up another plant's time for the lower level people and stuff. So
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah, no doubt.
but hell yeah.
Heck yeah.
Well, yeah, man, it's been fun chatting with you again, and when we come back we'll be chatting about body horror, which it won't
Yeah.
be next week. It'll be the following week. Hell yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you for joining me. And of course, if anybody's listening, wherever you're listening, or if you're watching on YouTube, just make sure you do whatever's clever for that platform. Like and
Mhm.
subscribe, leave a rating, leave a comment letting us know how you got into heavier music or even, pop punk or alternative music if that's what you're more into. If you want to tell us how wrong we are for some of our opinions, that's cool too. Especially, I know Ghost fans are probably like, they probably stopped listening about 30 minutes ago. Uh, other than that, I appreciate you, man. Stoked to do this again with you.
Hell yeah. Yeah, don't let anybody tell you that what you like to listen to is wrong, because that's bullshit. Love what you love, and yeah, enjoy music because it's, that's corny as fuck.
No, yeah, yeah, I hate when people are like, I like this. Yeah, just because I say I don't like something, I'm just saying it because I don't want people to be like, uh, oh man, I heard you mention ghosts, because then I'll be like, oh,
Sure.
I don't like them, but I don't want to be.
Yeah.
I also would rather say it now and then have somebody come up to me and be like, hey, dude, ghosts, blah blah blah, and then I have to say it to their face because then that's rude. Like I
Yeah.
don't want to be like, oh, fuck that
Oh
band.
yeah, and I'm
But
gonna be such a hypocrite too. Somebody's gonna drop something that I like, and I'm gonna be like, I can't stand that. I do that. I probably do that to my daughter all the time. Like this shit that you're listening to. So,
well, I mean,
but anyways,
just like you're allowed to like whatever you like, we're allowed to hate whatever we want to hate. You
there you go.
just don't shit on anybody else's thing for doing it. Is the
Yeah,
main
yeah.
the
Be
message. But
original, enjoy it, and go buy some merch.
hell yeah.
So.
Later, guys.